So I was working graveyard, and I was in the dispatch office one night, and I was with the dispatcher in there, and then there's a call came in. The dispatcher answered the phone, and then the person that called was screaming, and he was saying, "Help, help, help!" And you could see somebody yelling in the background. You could see kids are crying in the background, and you could see things were being breaking. And the lady was screaming and yelling. She said, "Help me, help me! I'm being hurt! I'm being hurt! I need help! I need help!" And of course, I was the only one that was available again. All the officers were busy with other traffics, and so I got called to domestic violence. So from where the office is at to where the event is going on, it's about maybe 25 to 30 minutes away. So I got in my unit, and I start calling in. I said, I'm en route. And then all of a sudden, officers start chiming in, say, what do you have, Leroy? So I kind of told them, and I start heading out. And then while I was heading out, every now and then dispatcher would say, Leroy, where are you at? Where's your location? The lady's still screaming. The lady's still begging for help. Now other people are calling in. And while I was on my way, and one of the officers chimed in and said, "Hey, you gotta be careful with that guy. He's a resistor. You gotta be extra careful, be cautious." And of course, they were using codes. And so I was like, "Oh, okay. Well, that really helps me as a police officer." So I was thinking, okay, how dangerous is this guy? I never dealt with this guy before. I don't know who he is, but they know of him. So I understand. They were going into my route, but they were still further out because they were taking traffic. And then I was thinking to myself, well, what should I do? Should I pull off the road and wait until they come? One of them come a little bit closer, then I can go again, or shall I just go? So again, the dispatcher is calling me and says, Leroy, she's yelling, she's screaming, she wants help, and the kids are crying, people are calling in. And I said, okay, and I'm just going to go. So there's a lot of things going on in my mind. I said, who's this guy? What is he like? How big is he? How fast is he? So I was like, I'm starting to doubt myself while I was going through this traffic. Another officer chimed in and said, hey, you got to be careful, man, you got to be careful. And like, oh my gosh, where's everybody? When you need them, they're not here. That's like when people say, when you need police officers, they're not around. But anyways, so I finally got to the location. Before I got to the location, I turned on my emergency lights. I also turned off my light, and I slowly creep onto the location. By this time, when I arrived, there were people congregated outside, and then people looking at me, and I parked my unit. I got up my unit. Like, he's in there. He's in there. The lady that supposedly I'm thinking that's the victim. Her face is all bloody. Her shirts are all torn, and like, she's in there. He's in there. He's in there. So I said, is there anybody in there? He goes, no, my kid. As I opened the door, the kid came in. He just gestured with her hand like this, says he's in there. So I started walking down the hallway. The hallway light was not on, and I start slowly checking rooms. And then I noticed that the bathroom light was on because I could see it underneath the door. So then I checked the doorknob, it was unlocked, and I opened it, and the guy was standing there. Well, here's another story. The guy was twice as big as me. His shoulder was about this big, and his biceps was about the big as his ankle. This guy was huge. And I never seen a Navajo like that before. And I was thinking to myself, oh my gosh, what shall I do? How shall I take care of it? So all these things are going through my mind. There's an earthquake happening in my body, in my mind. And finally, I had my hand like this, and I started telling him, ordering him, and he's looking at me. He's huge, and he's standing like this, and he's just looking at me. And so I took my hand out and I went like this. So instantly his face went to my hand. I hurry up and grab his other arm and pull him forward. And it's a good thing his stance wasn't that great. So he just tumbled on over to me and tumbled through the door because he's so big and so wide. I had to jump on him and then crank his arm. And then I had to put handcuffs on it. Then I have to grab his other arm and get his arm, and then handcuff him the other side. But his his wrist is about big. So the handcuffs barely made it over. Barely, probably got maybe a 1 or 2 hinge, and that's all it could fit. And they're like, wow, this guy is so huge. So I handcuffed and double locking, and we had to kind of move his body around, and I had to talk to him, and I finally stood him up and took him outside. And that's when, after, when the dust settled, and then that's when officers started to arrive. Hey, you okay? You okay? What's going on? And they were like, and I put him in the unit, and they were like, Leroy, how did you do it? I said, I don't know. I just used some of my trick of the trade. Well, why am I telling this story? There's a verse of scripture in the Old Testament about the story of David, and it's in 1 Samuel verse 30. And David is a funny man. I love David. David is as human as you can get. And David is having problem with trying to get his kingdom. He's having problem with relationship. He's having problem with finance, and he's having problem with being a leader. So in this particular verse of scripture, he at one time went over to be with his enemy, the people that he fought against. Now he's on their side, and he wants to fight with them. Well, there's some leaders that were part of that war thing, and they said, no, we don't want him. We don't want David and his men, because this guy will turn on us, and we might lose the war. So tell him to go back. So they went back where they left their family, their wives, and their provision. Well, when they got there, everything was in ashes. Nothing was left, and their wives, their kids, was taken hostage as prisoner of war, and so there's nothing left. Everything was just leveled by fire. And so David's men got upset with him, and so they said to him, you know what, we ought to kill you and stone you, because we have our family no more. And so David got scared, and David, it says in the scripture, says that David had to encourage himself in the Lord. And that's what I like about it. David had to encourage himself. And what I mean by that is, a lot of times we talk a lot about mindset. We said, like, mindset is like this, mindset is like that, and if you turn this waiver, it's like this, and like, it has an odor, it has a smell, it's solid, and this, like that. But in a real life situation, mindset is where you get tested. And like, I got tested. Like, when the officer starts saying that you got to be careful, my mind start to wander. I start doubting myself. And then, especially when I saw him in person, he was huge. And my mindset, like, oh my gosh, how am I going to take care of this person? So mindset is important. And a lot of times in our lives, we have to encourage ourselves in the things that we have to do in life. And not everything's going to fall in the right places. And sometimes we have to deal with the giants in our life. So mindset is important in whatever things that we do. So being said that, I hope you learned something from the story. I hope you can take something away from the story and use this in your life, and use that verse of scripture. And please also subscribe to my channel and make comments. I would love to hear from you.